Jones for sports. We make sports better.
All right, welcome back, everybody. We missed a week because it was Easter and it was craziness, but you are back now with the Boston Boys Sports Podcast. I am your co-host, Eli Horrigan. It is Saturday, April 6th, and I want to welcome in and back my co-host, best friend, and partner in all this, Steve Fernandez. Steve, how are you doing today?
Not too bad. How you doing, Eli?
I'm doing fantastic. I mean, better than you can imagine. We are 84 games away. Anyway, we also want to mention that we're partnered with Jones and for Sports. Check them out on Twitter. Check them out on Instagram for all the latest sporting news and any other updates they have. Jones and for Sports, we make sports better. And like I said, today is April 6th. We have a great show today. We'll be talking all sports. Mostly Boston sports, but we have a few new little segments that we want to try out, and you, the fans, can let us know how you feel. First, I want to start today with one we are going to call our Saturday Sports Overreaction, and it is a purposeful overreaction to what's going on in Boston sports, and it's very obvious that we'll probably contradict ourselves later on in the show. I just want to start with mine. Like I said, we're 84 games away from the prediction of 90 wins that yours truly had. So the Red Sox are legit, is my overreaction. They're 6-2. They're tied in first place. I might not get to say that for very long, but I'm going to sit on my throne while I can. Tyler O'Neill batting 409 with 4 home runs. Nick Pivetta and Cutter Crawford, your number 2 and number 3. They've combined for 21 and 2/3 innings. They have only given up 2 runs and they have 25 strikeouts. So my overreaction is the Red Sox are legit. I'm happy to say. I also want to pat myself on the back because until last night, I had predicted every Red Sox game correctly. I was 7-0. They beat the Angels. I said they were going to lose game 1. So that's my overreaction. Steve, what do you have?
So I was gonna go Red Sox, and it was gonna be an overreaction to your overreaction because I don't believe in the way that you do. I always think that pitching is ahead of batting at this time of the season. But I'm gonna reverse course and I'm gonna go Patriots. And my overreaction is gonna be I'm sick and tired of hearing people say the Patriots need to draft a quarterback at 3. And I know we discussed this in the first podcast, but it's something that I just continuously see. And my basic feeling on it, and I get the quarterback is the most important position on the field. We all know that. But it's you don't settle for who falls to you at 3.
I
And
agree.
I feel this way. I think everybody should feel this way. And the reason that is, I mean, it's not as strong of an overreaction, but it's just so popular. It's such a popular take from everybody in this fan base that you have to take the quarterback. There's no other choice. You have to take one of the top 3, and that's the only thing you can do without thinking about the simple fact that you're literally taking whoever is left for you by Chicago and Washington. And settling is not the way to build a team. And that's my reaction to that.
I mean, I completely agree with you. It is the exact same take as when there was the Big Five a couple of years ago. Trevor Lawrence, Trey Lance, Zach Wilson, Justin Fields, Mac Jones. The Patriots did nothing to jump up. What they did is they sat and they waited. They said, whoever comes at 15, we can't miss. And that's a horrible approach on quarterback because as you watched over the past few seasons, you can miss. And Mac Jones was a miss. And I know we differ on this because I don't necessarily think that Mac is bad. I won't say that the Patriots organization as a whole failed him, but they didn't do him any service to help him. They didn't surround him with good wide receivers. He had McDaniels, then he had Patricia Judge, then he had Bill O'Brien. He wasn't in a set system. I mean, it was a dumpster fire from Jump Street. And then you also learned about him. His mental toughness wasn't there. He acted like a little baby when, he's not getting put in, the helmet's off on the sideline. He's not really warming up. He's not doing the things that you want to see from a competitor standpoint. But I completely agree with you. Yeah, you said it's not, it's an overreaction. I know what you're saying, but I mean, let's take us to, let's rank these head coaches. That's one thing we wanted to do because we're talking Patriots and I have Red Sox. And where do you see all the coaches in Boston right now as far as who do you trust the most and who do you trust the least? What's your confidence level right now?
I think with Joe Mazzulla and Montgomery, I think they have to be kind of tied. They're kind of in the middle there
Yeah.
because I believe Gerard Mayo's got to be at the bottom. He hasn't done anything. He's never even
Mhm.
called a play in the NFL. So that there's so much to be seen there. So we have no idea. And then on the other side, Alex Cora has a title. I think he has to be at one. Just
Yes.
he has to be placed there. Um, I would probably put Missoula too if I
Okay.
was gonna, put them decide which one is two or three is two and three.
Yeah.
Missoula could drop drastically in the playoffs
Yes.
with his, with timeouts, not calling timeouts, the ISO ball at the end of the game. There's definitely things that he can do to drop. But at this point, for me, it would be Cora Missoula in that order, and then obviously Mayo taking up the bottom.
Yeah, I'd like to disagree with you, but I can't. That's my exact order as well. Cora gets the nod because he has a title. Missoula's 114 and 40. He's got to win this year. And if he wins this year, I mean, he's won, if you ask me, because I think baseball managing is the least strategic. And people, I know there are a lot of baseball players. I don't take offense to it, all the baseball fans, because I love baseball. You need to manage the game, with pitching mound visits and who you're going to put in. But as far as strategy goes, if Pedro Martinez is on the mound, you don't have to do anything. If you're Joe Torre and you have a roster like the Yankees, you just let them go play baseball. I mean, it's managing egos. So, and then Montgomery for me is three. He could have been two, I think, easily. I mean,
Yeah,
even if he made an Eastern Conference Finals run last year, but breaking the all-time points record and then getting ousted by the eighth seed is, unforgivable in my opinion. I won't say unforgivable. Win this year and I forgive you. If
right.
if Jim is looking for my forgiveness, I doubt he is, but Jim, I will forgive you. You win it all this year. And then same thing, Gerard Mayo, he's last. We don't know anything about him. And
Right.
as a coach, coaching players, this is the probably the hardest way to go into the next segment. But since we're talking NFL, we have another segment that we talked about and we workshopped it. And what we want to do is we want to do a 5 and 5, and it's going to be 5 overrated players and 5 underrated players across the leagues. We'll start with football today since I poorly transitioned Gerard Mayo into this. Um, so it's going to be players we've watched, maybe players we haven't watched, and those ones would kind of be based on numbers for us. Um, so we'll start with overrated or underrated, Steve. It's up to you.
Let's do underrated. Let's start
So
with
we want to
underrated.
go. Okay. You want to kick us off? Who's your number? I don't want to, not a ranking system, but who's your
Yeah.
first one you want to talk about? Very underrated player.
I wouldn't say he's very underrated, but I believe he's underrated considering who he was, and it's my favorite receiver of all time. You know
Okay.
who it is.
I do.
5'9", 190 pounds, but always the toughest guy in the field. It's Steve Smith.
Yes.
I mean, he has always been my favorite receiver. Eighth in receiving yards. He's got more receiving yards than Hall of Famers like Marvin Harrison, Andre Johnson, Chris Carter, and just he was that guy. Tough as nails. Went across the middle, didn't care. At his size, he's my size, and he was out there doing everything that he was doing. So he's my. I don't think he gets the appreciation he deserves. And maybe it's because of his attitude. Maybe it's because of some of this off-field stuff. Whatever.
Yeah.
However, I think as a player, he deserves more credit.
Yeah. I mean, if you want a dog at receiver, I want the guy to go get the ball. And Steve Smith Sr. was that guy. I mean, he was that guy in Carolina. I mean, who do you have? Newton. Did he play with Delhomme? Am I mistaken?
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
I mean,
in the Super Bowl against the Pats. Yeah,
yeah. So, I mean, Newton we saw Newton here at the end of his career with a dead arm. Newton was fantastic for what he was, but he wasn't Peyton Manning or Tom Brady or any of these guys who can find Steve Smith all the time. He had a cannon. I don't think he was the most accurate guy. So yeah, I wouldn't argue with that. I'll go to my first underrated is running back Ricky Williams.
Yeah.
Ricky Williams, I think, was if he did not take that hiatus to go on tour with Lenny Kravitz and smoke weed, we might be talking about him as an all-timer. When he left the NFL, I don't think fans today can truly appreciate like what kind of back he was. He's averaging 1,200 plus yards a season and 8 rushing touchdowns a season. And then when he came back, never a full-time starter, but at 32 years old in 2009, he plays 16 games. He only starts 7. He runs for 1,100 yards and 11 touchdowns. 35 balls for 264 yards and 2 more touchdowns. I don't think players today with the, the 2-back system, and sometimes it's a 3-back system in the NFL today, can truly appreciate just how good Ricky Williams was.
Yeah, I agree. That is a great one. I remember when he was in Miami, I mean, you were horrified playing them,
Mhm.
especially when they went with the Wildcat and all that other stuff. He was a problem.
I completely agree. Well, I'm going to kick it off again then. I'm going to go back to back because I want to start the run on quarterbacks. And my first
Okay.
quarterback uh he's probably my all-time favorite. And people are like, oh, Tom Brady. No, not Tom Brady. No, no, no. I can tell you I was at the last Sunday night football game at the old Gillette Stadium. And I was in the stands and I was chanting Tom Brady sucks, put in Drew Bledsoe. And I was one of a few, I was just one of doing that, one of probably 20,000. Drew Bledsoe, people forget how bad the Patriots were. Because if you were born in like 1995, you're just starting to see a Patriots team struggle, and you're probably a Pink Hat fan turning away from it now. Like, nah, the NFL is not that good. I saw 20 years of great. Well, we were the Carolina Panthers beforehand. And then you started getting Drew Bledsoe, you got Curtis Martin, Terry Glenn, Ben Coates, and then the defenses, Willie McGinnis, all those guys. But he's a 3-time Pro Bowler. He was instrumental in, I think, the way he handled the Tom Brady situation, the way he handled the Tony Romo situation in Dallas. He got comeback player of the year in 2002 for Buffalo after Mo Lewis absolutely railroaded him, which was one of the most vicious hits I'll still see. Um, 9 out of his 14 years, he threw for over 3,000 yards. 8 of those years, he was over 3,500 yards. He just the epitome of a class act, I think. I mean, I'm a Drew Bledsoe Bobo for sure. He's one of the few people, along with like Kevin Garnett and a few others, that if I met them, I would be a fanboy. I bought Drew Bledsoe's wine, which it's not cheap if you've looked at it, just because I'm a Bledsoe fan. And it was delicious too, by the way. But anyway, and who do you have for your second?
I will go with Rodney Harrison. I loved Rodney Harrison in San
I'm gonna
Diego.
interrupt you. He's on my list
Yeah.
as well, so we can you can take over for both of us.
Perfect. No, I have always been a Rodney Harrison fan. Loved how he played. I know a lot of the credit is taken away because he was fined so much and people thought he was a dirty player. But the
Yeah.
fact of the matter is, the 30 sacks and 30 interceptions, only 2 people in NFL history have done it. It's himself and Ray Lewis. The guy was just a baller. He left everything on the field, and he was just so much fun to watch. It's so often when you're watching football, for casual fans, obviously, but more so even for real fans, you watch offense, you watch the plays, you watch the quarterback, you watch the skill position players. But when you're seeing Rodney Harrison, I watched Rodney Harrison in the secondary. I watched him on plays on snaps. I wanted to see what he was doing, how he tracked the ball, what he was doing. He was just so much fun to watch and such a powerful player. So Rodney Harrison's my second one.
Rodney Harrison would be my third one, which I'm going to let you go again. But because I had him as well, I also want to put out there because you and I were both fans of Harrison. Roddy, they changed the rules of football halfway through this guy's career. He went from being able to spear you and absolutely cut you in half to you can't tackle like that anymore. So to be able to change up like that is I mean, just a credit to him anyway. Um, Troy Polamalu and Ed Reed, both really good safeties that you and I had the privilege to watch, both in the Hall of Fame. Roddy Harrison has a career 1,206 combined tackles. That's 500 more than Troy Polamalu and 60 more than Ed Reed. He's got 34 interceptions, two more than Troy Polamalu, 30 less than Reed. He's a two-time Super Bowl champion. And if I love Rodney, so if he watches this, if he just goes for the interception on that David Tyree catch, and
Oh
I mean, if he
gosh.
doesn't go for it, if he just absolutely does a Rodney Harrison and hits him, that's a perfect season right there. Like that was a miracle play. Rodney had the game-ending interceptions. That was kind of like one of the things you remember about him. And if he doesn't go for the interception there, I think the Patriots win that Super Bowl.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. That I don't like talking about that. It's funny. Like now, I'm okay with the Mario Manningham one because I
Yes.
think that is one of the greatest throws of all time, and I can't stand Eli Manning. He's
Yeah.
on my list for overrated, but
Yeah.
that throw was just obscene. I mean, it was disgusting.
You won't see a better throw in the NFL. Like, and the fact is, when you watch like the comments, like Bill Belichick saying, make him throw it to Manningham, like make him make that throw. And then he does. I mean, that's just all balls. I'm with you,
Yeah.
even though he's my namesake, Eli to Eli. Um, he's one of the he's like just a thorn in my side. I can't stand him. But I give him that. I give him all the credit in the world. They were the better team on the field that day. The first team to push the Patriots that whole year, really. Um,
Yeah.
well, since I went back to back with two, and I have my third one as Roddy Harrison. Who's your number three?
I'm gonna go work done.
Oh
Just
yeah,
so enjoyable to watch. I love even off the field stuff. I mean, you hear about his
I
charitable
can't beat
work and
that.
yeah, building houses for single moms and stuff like that. Just a great guy. But three-time Pro Bowler, when being a Pro Bowler actually meant something.
Yes.
Before the Tyler Huntley's of the world and Mac Joneses of the world were Pro Bowlers.
Yeah.
10,000 yards rushing. Just a good, fun back. He was in that time when you had Brian Westbrooks and guys like that. He was kind of that could catch out of the backfield, the TJ Duckett, everything else like that. He was a very, very fun running back. Again, another one. I like the smaller guys apparently, but another
He,
one who was fun to watch. Shifty, fun.
Well, I was going to pile on too. If we did a list of your five favorite offenses in the world, does that DVD make it with, Dunn, Vic, Duckett? They were so
Yeah,
good.
probably.
I mean, I think every kid on the planet that played Madden used the Falcons because all you did was you rolled out to the left and if they didn't send someone at you, you just ran it with Vic. If they did, you dump it to Duckett or Algie Crumpler and it's like 20 yards. It was like the biggest Madden cheat code ever. But yeah, that work done was fantastic. And off the field, I mean, he's an infinitely better person off the field than he was on the field. So it's like it big win all
100%.
around. Um, well, we both named running backs. I want to transition back to defense. You pick Rodney Harrison. I'm gonna take the guy that Rodney Harrison succeeded because I learned quite a bit about this. Not to go heavy Patriots on everyone, but Lawyer Malloy. And I only say that because in doing this exercise, I'm going back and I'm looking at old players and I'm like, oh, who could be considered, underrated, overrated, outside of the obvious? And I came up with Lawyer Malloy. And I say this because I consider myself a pretty good sports fan. I didn't realize that Lawyer Malloy played 15 years in the NFL. Like, and at age 37, he started 16 games in Seattle. He had 87 tackles, he had 4 sacks, and he had 2 forced fumbles. It's like I didn't even know he was still in the league 15 years later. He's still playing, and he's still a good player at age 37 in Seattle. Um, he was instrumental in winning a Super Bowl. Just a backstory to not bore people with stats. Lawyer Malloy as well was one of these guys. I went to Bryant College when the Patriots were practicing, when they had their summer practices there. It was fantastic. He was so small and it was condensed, but I'm on, I don't know what sideline, but anyway, I'm in the front row and Lawyer Malloy and the defense is out there and they're playing 1v1. The linemen aren't really participating. Tom Brady throws an interception and the crowd goes silent. It's just like you just watch, yikes, what do we got? This is year two. This ain't good. And Lawyer Malloy trots by us and he says, you guys can cheer for the defense. We win championships too. And like the crowd erupts in laughter that everyone's cheering. But it was like a cool moment because you're right there and it's like, oh, look at this guy. But yeah, I just think very underrated player for sure.
Yeah, I could see that. I definitely agree with that. I think one of the things that might have hurt him was he was always connected with Ty Law. It was
Yeah.
always Lloyd Malloy, Ty Law in that in the secondary. And I wonder if being a little overshadowed by Ty Law. Clearly they didn't play the same position, but it was the secondary grouping. And I
Yeah.
wonder if Ty Law kind of overshadowed him a little bit.
Now, hold on. Do you
But that one,
remember?
good.
I was gonna say, do you remember? Yeah, you may not have been. Did you have the poster, the firm, Tyler and Loy Malloy?
Yes.
I did too. I
Yep.
had that one
Yes.
hanging in my room. That was a great poster.
Yep.
All right.
Absolutely.
Anyway, back to the overrated, underrated. What do you got for me?
So I got a running back and a wide receiver left.
Okay.
And they actually, funny enough, played for the same team. But so I'm gonna go with Fred Taylor. I'll do the running back first.
I'll tell you what.
Just
Okay. Just you saying that. Why don't we do the whole team? Because you have the wide receiver, the running back, because I get the quarterback. So go ahead.
oh, so you got Brunell. Okay.
Brunel.
All right. So Fred Taylor, Jimmy Smith. I just both they were both solid players. Fred Taylor over 11,000 yards rushing. A few injuries here and there, and he played late. A lot of people
Oh yeah.
remember that back end of his career. But if we're going to give guys like Terrell Davis love, and Super Bowls are added to that, obviously. But I think Fred Taylor should get his love. And then Jimmy Smith, I mean, 26 in receiving yards, 12,000 yards in his career. Just a solid player. He had Keenan McCardell on the other. You had them, and he didn't make that list, but
Yeah.
Jimmy Smith was the number one. He was the guy, and he was
Yeah.
just a great receiver to watch.
I couldn't agree more. I don't think that team, because they didn't win a championship. Like, and they're the Jaguars, so people don't think about them like the big talk with the Jaguars, right? Are they going to move to London? Maybe play half their games
Yeah,
over there. I mean, they don't think of the Jaguars. So I picked Brunell. I could have easily picked Smith, McCardell, or Fred Taylor. But I picked Brunell because people don't realize Mark Brunell is. I know this is kind of out of left field, I'm sure, for people, but Brunell got drafted to Green Bay. He's a fifth overall pick, 1993. He gets traded to Jacksonville in their inaugural season. Starts 10 games. They're 3-7. They're absolute garbage. He comes back the next season, year two in Jacksonville. First ever playoff appearance. Leads the league in passing that year. He's a Pro Bowler, I believe, as well. In fact, he led them to 4 consecutive playoff appearances. Now we're talking about year 2, 3, 4, 5 of a franchise, and I just don't think he gets that credit. He has more career passing yards than Len Dawson, Terry Bradshaw, and Joe Namath, who are all Hall of Famers. They probably don't. I mean, they're Hall of Famers because it was their day, but I get that it was a different passing time, but I just think Brunel's a guy who gets overshadowed.
I agree. I agree 100%. And yeah, I mean, apparently we're both Jacksonville Jaguar fans. We didn't even know it.
I had a Brunel jersey growing up. I was like the Jersey King growing up. Like my parents, I mean, they were great. It's like every Christmas I would open 15 new jerseys. Some of them, I remember old BC legend William Green got drafted by the Browns. I had a Browns and Willie Green jersey too. So, I mean, I had them all. Um,
Love it.
so that's our list for underrated. If you heard anything, if you didn't have a pen writing it down out there, go rewatch this podcast so you can, and then you can disagree with us or agree with us. Why don't we go with overrated? Because I think the overrated ones are going to probably annoy people more than the underrated.
Yes, I agree 100%. That's why I figured we'd save it.
Absolutely. So do you want to kick off overrated or shall I?
I'm gonna go and I'm gonna start with an apology first because I
Okay.
know a friend of ours, Luke Carroll's not going to like this.
Oh boy.
But my number one overrated is John Elway.
Well, we've made an
Um,
enemy. We've made an enemy.
no, I hope not. But it's statistic based. It's all statistic based. It's all, I mean, he was a 56.9% completion percentage for his career, 300 touchdowns to 226 interceptions. His
Mhm.
playoff numbers were even worse. He, believe me, I understand early in his career, he carried a couple of those Denver teams. A couple of those Denver teams are really bad.
Yeah,
Lost a few Super Bowls. Um, in the end, there's questions, obviously, at the end of his career. Denver playing a little salary cap, funny business, keeping the team
for
together to
sure.
win at the end. Terrell Davis was obviously a huge part in the, the zone blocking scheme was a big part of it as well. Mike Shanahan might have been
I'm
there's a
holding
little bit
back.
there. Okay. Well, maybe that'll lead into something. I'm not sure, but um, yeah. Sorry, Luke, but John Elway is one of my top overrated from the
Uh,
NFL. I apologize.
I'm biting my tongue here. Luke, you're invited on the
Of
show anytime, and you can fight with us because
course, love you.
Terrell Davis is my number one. And we will have Luke on someday to talk. He's a huge Celtics fan as well, so he'll talk Celtics with you guys. But we'll give him a chance to defend his Broncos too. See, as a Broncos fan, Terrell Davis, I was holding back when you were saying it because I'm like, don't give away too much for me. Let me go on a run here. And my run includes Alandis Gary, Mike Anderson, Ruben Drones, Clinton Portis, Mike Anderson again, Tatum Bell. These guys are all 1,000-yard rushers. Post Terrell Davis, he only played 7 years in the league. 4-year window where he had over 1,000 yards. 1 year he had 2,000 yards. He was so overrated. I'm not, and I grew up and another good friend of mine, Greg Speakman, loved the guy to death. His older brother was a Broncos fan and he loved everything Broncos. I hate everything Broncos. I hated when Peyton Manning went there. I will say with one exception, I like Jake Plummer. I don't know why. I liked him in Arizona. I liked him. I thought Jake Plummer got really excuse my language, shit on when he went to Denver. And I don't think he was that bad. I just think he followed Elway and those salary cap teams that won Super Bowls. Yeah, no, I'm a big Bronco hater, so that's fine. With me, Luke, anytime you want to come on, let us know. We'll discuss everything Broncos. Um,
Of course.
Glad to get that off my chest. So, why don't we go? I have a feeling you might have this guy or a different guy from the same team. So I'm going to kick us off with Troy Aikman. Do you have Troy?
Yeah, he's on my list. So yeah, go ahead. You
Okay.
can knock that one out for both of us.
Troy, 12 seasons. He's 44th in yards. He's 80th in touchdowns. He's 81st in passer rating. He's 68th in passing yards per game with 199. He's not a 200-yard pass per game guy. And he's 55th in completion percentage at 61.5%. Those teams were a complete wagon, no salary cap. Every guy on the offense, I think, is a Pro Bowler, All Pro. The entire Moose Johnston, sorry, Michael Irvin, you have Deion Sanders. I mean, they were just fantastic. And Troy Aikman, it was like, you know, dare I say, I know he's a Hall of Famer too. It's like Kurt Warner on The Greatest Show on Turf. I mean, Troy Aikman could have been passing a lefty on that team and they would have won. So that's Troy Aikman for me made my list and he made yours as well.
Yeah, I agree with that. 165 touchdowns in 12 seasons to 141 interceptions. I mean,
Yeah.
again, not everything is statistically based, but those are horrific statistics.
Couldn't agree more. Who do you got past Troy?
I'm gonna go with the guy he used to turn and hand the ball off to all the time, Emmitt Smith.
Okay. I had a
And
feeling you might
that's
have him.
statistics. Yep, statistics are what they are. I mean, you can't argue with his statistics, but again, it's the same argument. It's
Yeah.
behind that offensive line. It's everything else that was there. Um, there's always the what if Barry Sanders had that offensive line? What would he have done? And I think we would have seen something very. We with Emmett, we saw something special. I
Yeah.
think a lot of running backs could have not fully done what Emmett did, but they would have been successful nonetheless. And with Barry Sanders or somebody like that behind that line, I think that would have been
You
ridiculous.
put Barry behind that line, and he might have more rushing yards than Jerry Rice has receiving yards. Um, I
Exactly. And then
mean,
look at the reverse. What if you put Emmitt Smith in Detroit and it was him, Scott Mitchell, and Herman Moore?
I mean,
What does Emmitt Smith's career look like there?
his career probably looks like I would say he probably had just barely more rushing yards than I don't know, Shane Vereen. I mean, yeah, Lawrence Maroney. I mean, who is he? I liked Maroney, but he's in and out of the league. Um,
Exactly.
I'm gonna kick this off. You already said Eli Manning when we were talking underrated players. You have him on your list as well, then?
For overrated, I do. Yeah.
I have him as overrated too. And for anyone who says, "Oh, you're," first of all, people are gonna say we're Cowboys haters. True. Um, but
Yeah.
it's not because those two weren't because we hate the Cowboys. Those are genuine. Same thing with the Giants. You can sit here and say, I'm a Giants hater. True. Um, I just don't think Eli Manning's that good. And the reason that he makes this list for me is the Hall of Fame talk. Um, he played his two greatest games against the Patriots. All the credit in the world to him. Um, he's 117 and 117 career. He's career 500. This Hall of Fame talk is silly. He was never in the top five voting for MVP. He is top 10 in yards and touchdowns, but he's also 12th in interceptions. The two Super Bowls don't trump mediocrity, and that's what his career was. And especially, I hate to compare him to another quarterback, but there was a different Manning in the league for years, and that's the Manning that belongs in the Hall of Fame. Eli does not belong in the Hall of Fame. Good career, not a Hall of Famer.
I agree. 100%.
All right.
100%.
So my number four is Matthew Stafford. Sorry, I know you're wearing your Georgia hat as well. So not only do we anger Luke, we'll anger you. Um, career 98, 107 and 1. He won a Super Bowl with that Rams team. They basically sold off every draft for the foreseeable future to put together that team. He's 11th in passing yards, 56,000. That's great. He had Calvin Johnson for 7 years, 6, 7 years. He's tied for 33rd with a 63.2 completion percentage. And his numbers to me are inflated like Culpepper with Randy Moss. When you have a guy like that and you can just throw it to him every time. And he's just, I would get into battles with guys all the time and say, oh, Matthew Stafford, how can you say he's not elite? Look, because he's not elite. I don't believe anyway. That's
No, that's a good one.
All right. Well, why don't we go with my number five is really probably controversial, but who do you got for number five?
My number five is Terry Bradshaw.
Okay.
He's,
Okay.
I know it's a different time. I know it was a
Steeler
different time.
fans.
I know, and I apologize. It was a different time. It was a different NFL. But the 51.9% completion percentage for his career, 212 touchdowns to 210 interceptions. He was an MVP in a season where I think the third place guy, I want to say it was Jim Zorn or something like that, had 15 touchdowns and 20 interceptions. He finished third in the MVP voting.
Yeah.
Again, I get it. It's a different time. The guy retired around the same time I was born. I
Yeah.
understand all of that. I didn't see him play, so it might be a little ignorant for me to say. But
Yeah.
I've literally had arguments with people on Twitter and on Facebook, people telling me that Terry Bradshaw should be in the GOAT conversation. So
Yeah.
for me, that's why he's overrated. If anybody's going to try to have that battle with me, I'm sorry, but I can't see that.
Well, not only the numbers, when you think of those Steelers who won 4 titles, you don't think of it like, boy, that team was offensively stacked. They had the steel curtain defense. They were phenomenal on defense. It wasn't the NFL today is clearly geared towards offense and
Yeah.
maybe drop Terry Bradshaw into Pittsburgh now when he's in his prime and it looks different. But hey, I agree with you. I think he's just a guy who, like, people look at him, Mount Rushmore type of guys, like, oh, Bradshaw, Namath, like Johnny Unitas. And it's like, it's a different era and they were good in that era, but they don't smoke cigarettes in the locker room anymore. You know what I mean? These guys were probably drinking at
Right.
halftime and it's a different game, but I completely agree with you. Um, for my fifth and my final, um, so I'll just say his name first and then I'll dodge all the bullets. Lamar Jackson. Yeah, the quickness. Um, First of all, I wanted Lamar Jackson when there was all the rumors around that he was not staying in Baltimore. I wanted the Patriots to go get Lamar because he is one of the great regular season quarterbacks, which is why I call him overrated because when you talk about guys like Tom Brady, right? Tom Brady's the greatest quarterback ever. Not because he's the most physically gifted. He wins. He wins when it matters. And that's when you have numbers, when you measure statistics, they don't tell the whole story because part of it is I won't even say part of it. The final exam is the Super Bowl. It's the playoffs. Like you can't get A's all year long and then you bomb every final and you're not the valedictorian. And that's my thing with Lamar. He's 62 and 24 in the regular season. He's 2 and 4 in the postseason. 15,000 yards plus 15,000 plus yards passing in the regular season, 1,300 yards in the postseason. 125 passing touchdowns to 45 interceptions in the regular season, 6 touchdowns to 6 interceptions in the postseason. And his quarterback rating, 98, drops all the way down to 75.7. Completion percentage, 64% to 57%. It's night and day. The guy's a different player, and that's why he's overrated to me. Because as great as he is in the regular season, he's that pedestrian when it comes to the playoffs.
Yeah, and I think there was always something to be said about when Michael Jordan was in the league, he kept guys from getting titles. I don't know if
Sure.
some of that plays into the whole Patrick Mahomes Kansas City thing right now. Lamar Jackson is that guy. Dak Prescott looks like that guy as well. Josh Allen is looking like that guy right now, and
Yeah.
I think it's going to look worse for him considering recent
Yeah.
transactions.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a few of them in the NFL, but Lamar Jackson, his playoff drop off, his statistics, and how he performs in the playoffs, it's drastic. It's bad.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. And, Patrick Mahomes is just a horse of a different color when it comes to, guys right now. He's a guy who turns it on. Dare I say to all our New England and Boston listeners that Patrick Mahomes is a better athletically gifted quarterback than Tom Brady. Tom had a lot of things Tom is the GOAT. We don't have to debate it, but Pat's on his heels. Um, and if you said to me like, oh, you're drafting the two of them, I mean, you're not crazy if you want to draft Patrick Mahomes over Tom Brady. If you're not drafting resumes and you're drafting just a player, like Pat Mahomes is, better than Tom Brady in terms of his physical abilities. Now, Tom was just a winner. Tom 28-3. Like there's nobody, who's coming back from 28-3. Maybe Pat could do it. We won't know. And like you said, that was the whole Jordan comp. When Jordan was in the NBA, guys like Reggie Miller and Patrick Ewing, they're not winning titles because no one can get by the Bulls. And we'll use that to transition into another wagon, which is the Celtics. They're far and away the best team in the NBA still, even after having a rough week. Let me go back 1 second too. The Buffalo Bills, Josh Allen. Go check out my latest blog. I did a 3-round mock draft for everybody. Josh Allen's getting some help, if you ask the kid right here, King of Kava right here. Thank you, Greg Speakman, for that nickname. But back to the Celtics. We know they're the best. Okay. Regular season team, the best regular season team. Do you or who should they be scared of in the East now that the playoffs are 5 games away for them? 6 games, maybe.
Something like that. Yeah. I
You could say
I
no one.
want to
Feel
say
free.
I can't though. I can't, and it's the question mark. There are question marks. It's the same thing that I said when we were talking about the coaches. with Joe
Yeah.
Mazzulla. There's still question marks. It's his coaching. It's the timeouts. It's the ISO ball in clutch situation. I mean, Jason Tatum dribbling 23 times and then taking a bad shot. No movement around the ball while he's doing it. There's nothing going on. There's
Yeah.
no picks being set. There's nothing off ball being done. So all of that has to scare you because that's playoff ball. It's
Yeah.
not. And if the three's not falling, that's a problem because they don't stop shooting if they're not falling. They continue.
Yeah.
So all of those have to be a concern. Milwaukee, it has to be. I mean, with Giannis, obviously, and Dame, he's never done it. He was in Portland. He's in a different place now. They could turn it on when the playoffs come. Miami, Eric Spoelstra always has to be a concern. I'm not naming players. I'm naming Eric Spoelstra has to be a concern because he can outcoach
Yes.
Joe Mazzulla in a heartbeat. The
Yeah.
one thing I'm going to say about Joe Mazzulla, just before I let you give your opinion on it, Joe Mazzulla, I still kind of view him as a rookie head coach this year
Yeah.
because last season he was thrown into the fire without an off season of preparation. Last season was I mean it was Ime and then it was nope, you're going to take over, we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
So this was the first full year that he's had an off season to prepare. He's had everything else, and then he gets thrown. Well, Marcus Smart's not on the team. Grant Williams is on the team. Robert Williams isn't on the team. Everybody's leaving. You're going to get Porzingis. You're going to get Drew Holiday. You're going to be running with Derek White. All of that happened as well. So this is still like a learning curve for him, in my
Yeah.
opinion. So it is going to be very interesting to see how that translates to the playoffs and how it all goes down.
I don't disagree with you on a lot of it. I don't fear Miami like I used to, and that's probably that could be ignorance, honestly, because I agree with you that Spoelstra is great. And I love Jimmy Butler. You know, it feels like we're plugging our good friend Luke today. But I remember you and I had completely separate conversations with him, and him and I were talking one day, and we were talking basketball, and he's like, "Who are your two favorite players in the league right now?" And I said, Damian Lillard and Jimmy Butler. And he starts laughing. He's like, that's exactly what Steve said. And those are the two guys who I do fear in the East, but for some reason I don't fear the Heat right now. I think it's a two-horse race. I think it's the Celtics and the Bucks. And the Bucks still, I think you're still a lap ahead. They score about the same as us. I say us, I don't play for the team. Despite the fact that I do look like Jaylen Brown, I am not him. Um, the Celts are better on defense. They're better at second chance points, and they are better at fast breaks by a wide margin. The Celtics will find themselves in trouble if they get into a half court game against Milwaukee, if they see Milwaukee. Obviously, these are scenarios in which they see them in the finals. They have to beat whoever comes out of the play in. So I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I believe it's a two-horse race. I like Cleveland. I don't love Cleveland. I like Donovan Mitchell. Past that, I think the rest of the team is role players, and I don't think they can compete with the Bucks or the Celtics. I It's the first time in a long time I've loved a Knicks team, and now Julius Randle's out.
Yeah,
I mean, I love Jalen Brunson. Josh Hart's good. They have OG Anunoby. He's good. Sorry if I butchered the last name. But without Julius Randle, I don't think they have enough. So I think it's a two-horse race. Um,
yeah,
Milwaukee is the real threat to Boston. But I think the one team that can get in Boston's way is Boston because of the reasons you said. If they go cold and they keep shooting, then you're not going to win. You know what I mean? There's got to be plan A and plan B and plan C because the playoffs, this isn't a regular season where you can, we lost 2 games in a row. It's no big deal. Well, no, you go down 0-2. It is a big deal, especially when they have home court. Um,
yeah.
Now, if the Celtics reach the finals, who don't you want to see?
Denver. I mean, the
Denver.
best
Yeah.
basketball player in the world plays in Denver, and they did it last year. They know how to win.
Jamal Murray?
So for me,
No, I'm kidding.
Jamal
I'm
Murray is
joking.
not the number one, but
Yeah.
he is nasty. He
Yeah.
is. I love Jamal Murray, but the Joker. I mean, come on. He's the best player in basketball right now. People might argue Luka, but people might argue Giannis. It's Jokic,
Yeah.
and Porzingis struggles against him. So now, what are
Who's
you asking? You're asking Horford. There's a lot there.
I think Porzingis has played well against Denver. Denver's 2-0 against the Celtics, which doesn't bode well for you if you see them. Porzingis hasn't played too poorly in those games. The problem is Jokic played infinitely better. I think he outscored him in 2 games by 20 points, and Porzingis put up 45 in both games combined, not separately.
Yeah, no, he can offensively go against Jokic. It's the defense that concerns me. I mean, at points they had Drew Holiday lining up against Jokic because that was the choice that they thought was better at the time, and then Jaylen
Yeah.
Brown as well. Well, Zingas can't handle him. He can't body him.
And as far as like the Celtics, what I will say this year is the West is more evenly matched. Oklahoma City's really good, Minnesota's really good, Denver's really good. They're all three of them are wagons. But as far as who lines up the best against the Celtics, when you talk about players, I mean they have Michael Porter Jr., they have Aaron Gordon, they have Jamal Murray, they have Nikola Jokic. So it's like they match up with your 4 stars. So, I mean, guys like Derek White, another guy who's going to be super important when it comes down to it is Peyton Pritchard. Whether you like role players or not, the bench gets short. Peyton Pritchard's been so good this year. I know we've talked about in the past, in the last podcast, he wanted off, he wanted gone. And
Yeah.
Brad Stevens reeled him back in, and he's been so important for the Celtics, and he's going to be really important going into the playoffs.
100%. And again, Luke, I texted him last night watching the game. I said, Peyton Pritchard has this uncanny ability. It's something you don't see often because, especially, and I don't want to say this, but I'm going to say it. When you watch Jaylen Brown dribble and he's
Yeah.
going into the paint, you get nervous. The ball's
Yeah.
loose, it's out wide. With Peyton Pritchard, that ball is so tight to his body. It's like it's stuck to his hands. His
Yeah.
ball handling, he works at that, and it shows. And it's very impressive. And he's a fun little guy to watch. And
Yeah.
he's really been a big part of this bench.
Also, how dare you? When I see Jaylen Brown dribble into the paint, the only person I'm nervous for is whoever's underneath for the poster because Jaylen Brown is my MVP of the Celtics. Okay.
I love Jaylen Brown. No, don't get me wrong. I love Jaylen Brown, but when Jaylen Brown dribbles into the paint, I get the same feeling I used to get when Marcus Smart was popping a three. Okay.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I do agree. There's at times like it's like, please don't pass the ball, kick it. But
Yeah, it's just loose. Sometimes the ball's loose. That's all.
so let's level of trust in Missoula A to F. Where do you got them?
B. I'm gonna stick with a solid B right now
I'm a solid
because
B
there's
as
still some
well.
things that, yeah.
Yeah. He's better than your average coach, which to me is a C. But yeah, solid B. And that'll probably do it Celtics wise. We are heading into the playoffs. I mean, they're long clinched the number one. So it's like we have a week left. And I think the last game of the season, maybe April 14th, maybe the 13th, but we're coming up on playoff time. I want to transition. I mean, the Bruins are in the same place. We know what the Bruins are. I won't bore everybody here with too much Red Sox. We already kind of talked about it. We touched on them. One player and Trevor Story's hurt again. I don't know how big of a deal it is. I was hoping he'd have a bounce back year if you read the blog post. He feels like a guy who just can't get out of his own way at this point. Keep an eye on Ceddanne Rafaela. He's going to be good, man. He's 23 years old. I know he had an error last night and it led to a huge inning, but he's 23 years old. I think he is. He's the next guy that the Dodgers end up trading for because the Red Sox won't pay him. But yeah, I won't bore you too much. I know in the overreaction, 6-2, it's great. These guys aren't going to pitch like that all year. Hopefully they do, but they're not going to. At some point, if you're still in it in a month or two, you're going to have to start thinking about picking off teams like the Rockies, the Pirates, the A's, if there's spare parts that you can salvage, because they're not going to stay healthy and they're not going to stay good. But I just did my mock draft. We've talked a lot about Patriot stuff. I do want to go back to the Patriots because you wrote a really interesting post maybe a week, 10 days ago about draft diversions in the NFL. And I kind of want you to explain a little bit to maybe the folks who can't read or don't read what you mean when you say draft diversions.
So this time of year is the time that you stop believing anything you hear from Adam Schefter or Ian Rappaport or whoever you listen to, because a lot of it is being fed or seems to be being fed from teams, whether it's news to up their trade value for their picks or to try to get a player to drop to them. So a lot of diversions are thrown out there by the teams. My specific one that I wrote about, if you haven't read it, go back and read it. It was just a quick piece on Jim Harbaugh because he came out earlier and he started talking about how JJ McCarthy is the greatest Michigan quarterback ever. He wait until the draft comes. He's gonna be moving up to about number one. He should be the first guy off the board. And that was about a month and a half ago. Then after JJ McCarthy's pro day and everything else, he continued on. He kind of piggybacked on it. He's amazing. You should see this guy throw. I obviously had him at Michigan. So my kind of conspiracy theory, if you will, on that was, well, Jim Harbaugh sits at number 5
Mhm.
with the Chargers.
Yeah.
They don't have Keenan Allen anymore. They don't have Mike Williams anymore. They're going to need somebody. Austin Eckler's gone. They're going to need a receiver for Justin Herbert. So my draft diversion joke about him talking to McCarthy was maybe trying to get McCarthy into the top 4. So now you'd have Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Drake May. Maybe a Minnesota trades up. They grab JJ McCarthy because they've heard all this wonderful stuff about him. And then Marvin Harrison Jr. would fall right into the lap of Jim Harbaugh. So it
Okay.
was, again, it's a conspiracy theory, but it's a pretty genius one. And I will say this, if this is what Jim Harbaugh was actually doing, knowing Jim Harbaugh, he'll tell us about it later. He'll be proud to brag about the fact that he
Oh, of
pulled off.
course. He can't keep
If it
anything to
happens.
himself. I think the
No.
problem with him doing this is it's just not going to work. There hasn't been a lot talked about with Marvin Harrison Jr. I think it's pretty set in stone that, I mean, unless the Patriots take Marvin Harrison Jr. at 3, um, which feels like it could happen. It's an off chance, if you're a gambler and you're a betting person, you're probably getting pretty good odds. But I think Marvin Harrison Jr. has come out and said he wants to play in Arizona. So I'm pretty sure they're not moving out of it. It boggles my mind. I don't know why he wants to be in Arizona outside of the weather. He wants to be in the warmth, but um, this is such a wide receiver deep draft that there's no reason for me to think that the Patriots should go wide receiver at 3. Um, at 3, I know we've talked a whole ton about quarterbacks. We've done multiple, every Monday we do a mock draft. If you were the GM, what are you doing at 3? Not what you think they're doing. What are you doing at 3?
So I'm listening to my scouts. I'm trying to find out whether or not I like any of these quarterbacks. So take Caleb Williams out of the mix. He's going number 1. He's not even doing a visit with any other team. He's going to
No,
Chicago. So for me, it's obviously Jane Daniels, Drake May. The intelligent thing to do is find out whether or not you like them. If
sure.
you Let's say you like Drake May, but you don't like Jaden Daniels, and Drake May goes at 2, you don't just draft Jaden Daniels.
Yeah.
So I would have Minnesota on the phone when Washington was drafted. And if Washington takes the guy that I like, all right, Minnesota, what do you have? I want 11, I want 23, and I want next year's first.
Yeah. I, I don't
Then that's
disagree
what
with
I
that.
do. I'm not drafting somebody just because I'm drafting somebody. I want to draft who I want, but if they're not available, you have to be ready to adjust and do something different. And building the team with another first round pick next year and 2, 11 and 23, it might be the way to go at this point.
I don't disagree with you. The only issue I have with this is at 11, I'm not getting anyone I want either because I did that trade in one of our mock drafts. I traded back, I got 11 and 23. I gave up 3. And then at 11, sitting there looking at Talisi Fuaga, again, butchered the name, I apologize. He's a 6'5" tackle. Some scouts are projecting now he's a guard. Terry and Arnold was still there. Do I want to take another cornerback first? I know people say a position that needs a cornerback, but I think that they're okay at cornerback. I don't think they're great, but I don't think you should take another cornerback at 11. I ended up with JJ McCarthy, who I don't want in the first round, but it's like I hemmed and hawed. I had it up on my screen and I'm like, I kept trying to trade back again because I'm like, I'll take Amarius Mims, and it's like, I for the life of me, I'm like, I got to get this moving. So I drafted JJ McCarthy because am I taking offensive tackle that might be a guard, another cornerback, or do I get the quarterback? I ended up getting the quarterback, and I didn't like the quarterback. It's not a draft I would have wanted to do. I'm almost partial to calling up Tennessee. I don't know if they're sold on Will Levis and saying if it's Drake May or Jaden Daniels. How about 7 for 3? Because at 7, I can get Joe Alt, I think, or I can, you know what I mean? I can make a move with a guy. I love Dallas Turner. He's a guy I really like. I like Roma Dunzi. I want to go deeper. We've talked wide receiver, Adonai Mitchell, Xavier Worthy, Troy Franklin, Xavier Legette. There's so many guys that you're going to get in the second round, um, or even third round that I think I don't go wide receiver. I need a big tackle, and that's what I want. It's the boring pick. It's the pick, you and I, when we were working and we're driving out to Western Mass at one point, I think you were driving and it was draft night and we're watching, and it's like, what a great night as a fan. And it's like, what are they gonna do? What are they gonna do? And it was the N'Keal Harry draft. And we argued all the way out to Western Mass. And I told you, you
Yep.
don't listen to me, but I told you N'Keal Harry was a star. I was wrong, but you don't listen to me, and that's a problem in this relationship. But it's so boring on draft night when you're watching, and it's like, you're like, "Oh, who they gonna get? Who they gonna get?" Oh, they traded back again for the 7th year in a row. Oh, they just took a interior offensive lineman. I waited for 4 hours to see this. It sucks. I know we have the third pick. You want it to be flashy. You want it to be sexy. Ask Detroit how that worked out when they took Joey Harrington, and was it Charles Rogers and every other big name flashy pick. It didn't work out for years. I don't want a quarterback at 3 because free agency was so bad. I listened to Gerard Mayo. I read the story, and he regurgitates everything that Patriots media and Patriots fans say. Weak class, weak class, weak class. It was, it's him continuously saying, I'm going to get fired up right now. It's him continuously saying, don't blame Robert. They gave us all the money in the world. Okay, well, I have to blame somebody, okay, because I'm a jerk fan. Now I blame you then. You and Elliot Wolf are the problem, and Kraft is great. That's what you're telling me. Sorry.
No, you're 100% correct. So going into this free agency, first off, it wasn't a weak class. That is such
No, and we talked about it. It's
right. Like you went in with this, we have money to burn, we're gonna burn money, all this other stuff, and then you backtracked from that because you were yelled at. I'm assuming that's an assumption. I'm assuming you was told you can't say something
yeah,
like that. Then all of a sudden, when you don't spend money, well, it was a weak class. It was a weak
yeah.
class. We took care of our guys. It was a weak class. That's nonsense. You're just trying to protect yourself. You're trying to look better. But you can't, you really can't draft a quarterback and bring him into the situation and expect him to succeed.
No,
This team is not built for that. So that is not the way you go. But unfortunately, I hate to tell you this. I think that's what's going to happen.
I do too. It scares. This team's built for the XFL right now. They're not even built for the NFL.
Right.
Like now, the new thing. There's two things that I wanted to go over. That just popped into my mind. But the new thing now is Duggar's not happy with the transition tag, and he doesn't want to resign here. So what was this all for? Why the? Excuse my language. Why the hell did you transition tag a guy when he wanted to get paid and he would have stayed? So you really didn't want him enough to pay him, which is fine because safeties right now are being treated like running backs. Like they're just there's so many safeties out there still right now. Justin Simmons is one, and Jordan Poyer, off the top of my head, two guys who are fantastic safeties, can't find a job. You transition tag a guy who you don't want to keep long term, and now he doesn't want to be here. So what's the plan right now in New England? Because okay, let's go get the quarterback, and he's going to sit for a year under Jacoby Brissett. Me as the fan, why do you? What am I watching for then? You're basically telling me we're not investing in this team. We don't think they're that good. It was a weak class. We have too many guys who are better than Danielle Hunter or Chris Jones. Stephon Diggs just gets traded. So guys are still being moved. We're just we're the team not making moves.
I agree. Now, I will say this. I've listened to sports radio and everything else. People will talk. Well, the Patriots could have gotten Stephon Diggs, and maybe they could have. The report is that Buffalo said you can go look for a trade for to any team other than Kansas City. That's the rumor that they said to him. Do I want Stephon Diggs in this locker room? No, not even close. Especially if you're
Yeah.
bringing in a young quarterback. The guy ran his way out of Minnesota. We all know what just happened in Buffalo. Apparently, he had a blowout with Josh Allen after Week 1 last season. They're reporting now. So no, I wouldn't want him in this locker room anyway. But I get the point. I mean, there's opportunity. There's skill position players. There's
Yeah.
people out there that you haven't even tried. So this kind of transitions me into this. Funny enough, into this one thing that I was going to say. This offseason, I was convinced they were going to spend, and only because Robert Kraft would want to prove that it wasn't him withholding money. It was Bill Belichick. So now that Belichick is gone, I spent $100 million. See, it was the other guy. It wasn't me. Look at all the money we spent. And he didn't even do that. I thought he was going to do it just to save face and to prove a point. And he hasn't
Yeah.
even done that.
And I don't want to speak ill of anyone because, obviously, hopefully we turn this into something someday and we have access to locker rooms. That would be fantastic. But is it time for Robert to hang up the media stuff? Because when you come out with, Calvin Ridley's girlfriend didn't want to be here, and then you find out he's been married to the same girl and has kids. It's like,
He's been
is
with
he,
us since high school.
yeah, is he starting to maybe not be as, oh boy, I don't know a delicate way to say it. Is he not all there when it comes to knowing every intricate detail about things? And it doesn't make you seem in the know when you say something like that. And they're like, the hell is he talking about? This guy's been with this girl since he was like, unless Calvin Ridley was dumb enough to bring his girlfriend to a meeting, his affair, like his side chick, which I don't, obviously I'm just saying that in jest. I don't think he has one. Like, I
Right.
don't think you were that involved then, and now you're not looking like a really informed owner who is 100% in.
No, and I mean that's the dictionary definition of ignorance. I mean, he's speaking on something he has no knowledge on. And if you look at that interview and that conversation, he said 4 different things. I mean, he talked weather, he talked taxes, he talked money, and then he talked his girlfriend. Like,
Yeah,
I mean, it wasn't as if he just came up with excuses as to why it didn't work out. I mean, just say it. We didn't want to pay him. You could have paid him. Now,
yeah,
did I want Calvin Ridley here for $30+ million a year as a fan? Not even close.
no,
He's not that receiver, in my opinion. But don't make excuses, and you're making multiple excuses, and then you're making excuses that don't even make sense in the end.
I could not agree more. I think that's all we have for today. We will be back again next Saturday, because we just genuinely love doing this. Make sure you hit our website as well, because we put out excellent content all week. Find us at Hub Boy Sports on Twitter. We'll be glad to interact with you. A lot of times it's Steve. He's far better than that at me, than me, I will say. But he's also, look at it. It's the face who runs the place. Steve, I love doing this with you. I can't wait till next Saturday. We will stick with our 5 and 5. We'll do the NBA edition next week. We will also have our Saturday overreaction. I'm thinking we might throw in like a Jeopardy, a Boston sports Jeopardy. I've been really thinking about stuff. Steve, anything you want to say to the fans?
No, I just appreciate everybody watching. Like it, comment on it. Let us know if you have any disagreements, arguments. We love those. We love to debate, and just let us know what you guys are thinking.
Yeah, absolutely. And we are so close to the NBA playoffs. We're so close to the NHL playoffs, and we're so close to draft day. And we're 86 games away from Boston hitting that 90-win mark. Go Red Sox. Other than that, again, we are partnered with Jones and for Sports. We make sports better. Go check them out as well. And from one half of the Boston Boys Sports podcast and blog, thank you for listening. Steve, been a pleasure, and we will do this again soon.
Always good seeing you.
All right, take it easy, man.
Welcome to Jones and for Sports, where we make sports better.